Okay, members, well, welcome to the Easter Ross Area Committee, to the members and to the others that we have joining us to take part in the meeting. Please note that the meeting will be recorded for archiving for public access via the Council's internet site, and it will be available through the YouTube channel. Can everyone please ensure that they've activated their cameras and muted their microphones? And if you could try and use both throughout the meeting. If you wish to ask a question, if you could just use the electronic hand, and I'll make a note of that, and then I will invite you to speak, to comment or ask a question in the order that you've put your hand up. Can we also note any members who have got a declaration of interest? I'll shortly be asking for that, if you can give that to Fiona. So Fiona, I'll invite you to take the roll call first, please.
Morning, members. Let me know if you're here. Councillor Finlayson.
Yep. Here.
Councillor Loudon.
Present.
Councillor Monroe. I think it's not.
Apologies from Councillor Monroe.
Oh, apologies. Okay, thank you. Councillor Rind.
Here.
Councillor Robertson. I can see you're here. There's apologies from Councillor Smith and Carolyn Wilson. I think is not here yet. So
apologies from Councillor Wilson. I'm sorry, right. I contacted them both by phone.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Okay, thank you, Fiona. Moving on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Members may have indicated beforehand to Fiona. If not, if you would like to declare them now. No. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item number 3, which is wonderful good news to share. There's a small note of it there in the agenda, but Councillor Smith and I were absolutely delighted and very honoured to present quaighs from Highland Council to Tom and Luke Stokman recently. Their achievements in the Scottish, UK and World Strongman competitions has been outstanding. They are truly remarkable and impressive men, and it was an absolute pleasure to meet them. That was the first time I'd met them. Maxine had met them before, and some of their family came along as well, and it was delightful to be there. We're really thankful that they are such wonderful ambassadors for the Highlands, for Easter Ross, and particularly for Invergordon. Everyone is so proud of them in our area. And all that they've achieved, and I can truly say that they are an inspiration to all of us. So I certainly would speak on behalf of all the members, and particularly of Councillor Smith, who's not here. I know that she would share in everything that I say just now. So well done to them, and we're so thankful for them. Moving on to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the Police Area Performance Summary Report, and it's on pages 1 to 10. The committee is invited to note the progress made against the objectives set within the Highland Local Policing Plan for 2020 to 23 Year 1, attached as Annex A to the report, and for the period covering the 1st of April 2020 to the 31st of March 2021. And we have Inspector Richard Ross here. And Richard, if you want to highlight any key aspects of the report, and then members can raise any questions or make any comments.
Okay, good morning. Thanks as to where you've got the report. I'd like to just go off and say the first section relates to road safety and road crime. And whilst I'm not going to go through every section of a highlight, obviously we've, unfortunately there has been an increase by 1 in fatal road accidents during the time period, and there's 4 detailed there. So the first one related to April last year was on the Scotsburn Road in Tay, and that was a male 43-year-old driver was killed. So a single vehicle, single person collision. Second one was in November last year on our Dross Road in Alness, female driver aged 56. Again, it was a single vehicle, single person accident. The third one was on the 4th of January this year on the A9 at Milnafua. It's a driver, male, aged 27, and there's no charges in relation to that. The last one during the time period is on the 27th of March on the Stree Road near Alness. There was a male passenger aged 16 who was unfortunately killed, and inquiries in relation to that are still ongoing. In relation to the stats, obviously you'll know there's been an increase in drink and drug drivers by 32 compared to the same time period last year. At the same time, we've got a reduction in speeding and a reduction in people using mobile phones whilst driving, and in relation to seatbelt offences being detected. To give some context in relation to that, obviously the roads around the north have been very different over the last year due to lockdown, what vehicles have been on the road, etc. In general, there's been less vehicles, which would correlate with a reduction in a number of the types of offending. Obviously, what we have seen is an increase in drink and drug driving, and obviously that shows that our resources have been focused, targeting the right people at the right times. It's also been assisted by the new roadside drug wipes, which probably accounts for a proportion in that increase. Obviously, whilst dealing with that, you get the detect people driving that then takes units off the road to deal with them for quite some time, which then takes them off the road for detecting other offences like seatbelts and speeding. So whilst we're catching people for one thing, then it removes the ability to patrol for that time period. I'd say the roads have been very different over the last year. We are seeing they're back probably as busy as they normally would be, and we'll see what the next year brings in relation to that. So there's been a number of preventative campaigns ongoing throughout the year: Operation Cedar, Driver Engagement North, our Festive Safety campaign, probably most notably our work in relation to the NC 500. There's been some dedicated road policing patrols for the NC 500. There's regular patrol plans in place, and through the visitor management group, we work alongside our partner agencies in tackling any issues the NC 500 brings to us. Primarily now is obviously tourists are coming back to the area. See, there's a hand up. Do you want me to stop just now for that?
No, if you just carry on, Richard,
Okay.
we'll take them at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yes. So the next section is in relation to serious and organised crime. Obviously, we continue to take an intelligence-led approach to the supply of controlled drugs. In the area, there's been a number of recent successes in relation to that. There's been 12 misuse of drug search warrants executed during the reporting period, with 10 of these being with a positive result. In terms of serious and organised crime, there's ongoing investigations into in relation to online and electronic frauds, which have targeted local businesses and charities, which have resulted in the loss of substantial amounts of money in the division and in Easter Ross over the current reporting year. That is a trend that's been seen across our division and the country, that electronic frauds, particularly by the internet and telephone, have increased. And sadly, that's one thing that did increase during the lockdown period. Criminals found a new way to commit crime as such. In terms of acquisitive crime, next priority, there's been an increase in theft by housebreaking by 5, which is 13 were to dwelling houses, non-dwelling houses 4, and other premises 4. Detection rates currently sitting just below 30% for that. As you'd expect, there was a drop in shoplifting, which undoubtedly coincides with shop premises being shut. No change in relation to the theft of motor vehicles, but there has been a reduction of thefts from motor vehicles. So it says that COVID-19 obviously provided the best in the community in supporting their neighbours, etc. But unfortunately for some, it also presented opportunities for the unscrupulous to commit crime, and we still see housebreakings, etc. occurring, and there has been a number in recent times. In terms of the next priority for antisocial behaviour, violence and disorder, you'll know there's a substantial decrease in the number of licensed premises checks. Again, that's purely down to the lockdown. The most licensed premises were not open. It's a form of reassurance in terms of going forward, and since the licensed premises reopened, we are regularly carrying out licensed premises checks, and as an area we're carrying out in the region of about 30 to 40 a week checks on licensed premises. So that's an absolute priority for us at the moment. So that is ongoing. In terms of supply offences for possession, supply, and being concerned in the supply of controlled drugs, that's remained static in relation to last year. Disorder has increased slightly by 29, but it's again below the 5 and 3 year averages. With assaults, whilst increasing again below the 5 year average, with a detection rate of just below 73%. In terms of number of assaults on emergency workers, it has increased by 1, and again, it's a detection rate of 100%. I know nationally there has been a significant increase on assaults on emergency workers, so our increase is probably fairly low compared to what's happened in other areas. Currently there's 5 properties being looked at under stage 3 of Operation Notebook in the area, and there's 4 addresses subject to stage 1. There's no antisocial behaviour orders currently in place. Stop search figures, as you'd expect, they have gone down significantly over the last year as less people on the go, but also health and safety considerations of interacting with people, close contact within the 2 metre social distancing. So there is still stop searches where required, but the number has dropped. In terms of protecting vulnerable people, I'd like to highlight, obviously, during the time period, there's been 137 reports of missing people within the area. What we have done is we've appointed local liaison officers to the residential units for looked after children in our area. This has given us some positive working relations between the police and the staff, but also some of the young people who are in the homes, and that's starting to see benefits in a reduction of the number of times we have people reported missing from them. In terms of that, that's the only points I'd like to highlight from the report, unless there's any questions people would like to ask.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I will just ask a question, but then I'll go on and take the other questions that there is first before asking you to answer, because some of them might be repeated. But my query is around the 50-mile-an-hour zone in Tain around the Asda junction. If we could have, I appreciate you might not have that feedback for us just now, but if you could look into getting us some feedback, and in terms of, you know, the number of people that have been stopped for speeding, the accidents, if there's the changes in them, and just the overall police feel about how that is working. We could do with feedback within our ward, even if you just come back to the Tain and Easter Ross ward, with some feedback about that, so that we know and we can feed back to our communities about that.
No problem. As you said, I don't have the exact stats for that area, and I'll need to pass that back to the local inspector, Joe Thompson, to get that figures and pass them on to.
That would be great, Richard. Thank you. I have Councillor Loudon first, and then Councillor Finlayson.
Yeah, I think thanks for the report, Richard, and yeah, maybe the wrong phrase, but the number of people detected for drink drug driving, you know, it's a fairly sobering statistic. 69. I mean, if you look at the 5 year average or the 3 year average, and then the previous year, it's a massive increase. And you know, I listened to what you said, and you were talking about drug wipes. So is the increase in detection of more of drug related offences rather than drink related offences.
Um,
And could you explain a little bit about what the new system, the improvement in detection that the new system has brought about?
Okay, so obviously, I think it was just slightly prior to this reporting period, the new legislation in terms of drug wipes came in. That gave the police powers similar to drink driving, where also you have to provide a breath sample. If we suspect drug driving, you can be asked to provide a saliva sample, and that is a sort of stick type device which detects certain controlled drugs. That was a real improvement for us compared to the previous system, where somebody would have to be arrested, a doctor taken in to observe them, and also to take a blood sample. This is quite simple. If you are detected with this, we will arrest you, take a blood sample. If there is any of certain types of drugs, you will be reported for it. It's a far more straightforward process, and undoubtedly accounts for a significant proportion of that increase, because before it was quite unusual. Drink driving was regular, drug driving detections weren't. Now drug driving is fairly regular detected. And as you say, well, would use the term sobering, I would say very disappointing to see that we've still, 69 people have been caught during that time period. But the new power we have got, the new equipment we have got, has undoubtedly assisted in detecting these people.
Yeah, I think that what that's saying is that it may have been that drug drivers were getting away with it previously. They're not getting away with it now. It's disappointing to see the number going up, but the reason for it going up is that more people are getting detected, and that's a positive thing. Yeah,
there's a far more instant result now to that, and it really is good, the new equipment we've got, and probably the road policing have concentrated good effort on that to get these detections to remove these people from the road.
Yeah, it's really good. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Finlayson.
Yes, good morning, Richard. Thanks for your report. And I know that policing, like other organisations like NHS and all that sort of staff, are, you're really extremely busy. I know NHS at the moment, a lot of hospitals are struggling with regard to staffing levels, from what I hear. Are you finding that difficulty in our area? Is staffing levels okay? And the new system we've got going that started with Police Scotland about, I don't know how many years ago now, 5, is it 6 years maybe? And are you finding that a need for more police officers, especially on the beat? So I would have thought, but I don't know. What's your feelings on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's in terms of staffing, obviously other agencies are currently reporting large abstractions due to the pandemic. We don't currently have that large abstraction. We have had instances of officers having to isolate following being incidents, but thankfully that's been fairly low numbers, and currently we're saying very low with that. So we don't currently have that abstraction. And in terms of staffing, our numbers are fairly stable, and there's no particular issue at the moment staffing wise for us.
Thank you, Richard. Can I come back just on briefly?
Of course, yeah.
Is there any thoughts at all of going back to, I'm saying back, but it's a step forward, I'm sure, these days, to on the beat police officers, walking the street or whatever? I see plenty of police cars going around. I don't see many police officers on the streets in our area anyway. Thank you.
So obviously officers, we have a certain number of officers to attend calls. When they can, they will do foot patrol. We are trying to encourage more foot patrol in areas. And as I said, park up the car and take a walk, so we are encouraging it, but it's on a targeted, where there's issues, we'll take a patrol plan in place. But unfortunately, the officers you see in the car would be the officers that are doing the foot patrol. So we have calls to answer, so it's we'll have a certain resource to go around.
Okay, thank you, Richard. That appears to be all the questions and comments that we have. We really appreciate you stepping in and coming to the committee today and answering our questions. So thank you.
No problem, thanks. Bye. Okay,
bye. Okay, moving on to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the Housing Performance Report. And the report's been circulated. It's on pages 11 to 15. And the committee is invited to consider the information provided on housing performance for the period the 1st of April 21 to the 30th of June 21. And we have Rory McLeod, Colin Sharp, and Keith Mackenzie here today to talk to the report and answer any questions that you have. So can I hand over first of all to you, Rory?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. Yeah, as you've pointed out, I've got my colleagues Colin Sharp and Keith Mackenzie from the repairs side. They can answer any questions around the repairs performance measures. I won't read the report out to you, but just to touch on the highlights. Across all of our performance measures, we've seen some improvement or met our performance targets, except for the non-emergency repairs. There are some reasons around that, which Colin can get into. The void relet has seen substantial improvement in Tain and East Ross, and solid improvement in Crombie Firth. So both are now achieving their target in Q1, where in Q4 last year they were just above the targets. You'll see improvements in the rent arrears. Rent arrears has been a focus of where we've been focusing our attention on providing support to tenants throughout the pandemic lockdown and through the changes there. There are some one-off reasons for the improvement around for the improvement in arrears performance around improved payment cycles for benefit claimants, but there's been a significant focus from our staff on that too. There's some ongoing challenges, but our staff remain focused on that. And finally, the homeless, on the homeless figures, you'll see a slight downward trend across Ross and Cromarty. That's a disaggregated figure for the whole former Ross and Cromarty committee area. We haven't been able to disaggregate down into the smaller committees, but you'll see there's a slight downward trend. It's not necessarily indicative of the full Highland trend. I think that's been relatively stable. But at this point, I'll open to any questions that members may have.
Okay, thank you, Rory. I have a comment and a question. The first comment is I would like to mention Jessica, our new tenant participation officer, who has taken over from the very big shoes of Lorna Simpson. Lorna had a really close relationship with members and with the residents, and we just didn't know how we were going to manage without her, and so disappointed for her to go. But I must say that Jessica is fantastic. I've attended a few meetings with her, even face to face. You know, I've met with her in Mansfield Estate and online meetings, and she's fabulous. She's a fabulous communicator, and she's so passionate and so enthusiastic, and she gets on so well with the residents that I'm absolutely delighted that we've got Jessica on board. And I have said that to her. I've said, you know, it's a huge relief that she's come into the post, and I think she's going to be fantastic at it. And anything that I've put to her, she's been so good at getting involved. And I think, Rory, we discussed by email the woman Fiona, who's looking to put a little play park type area, and Jessica went in there and spoke to Fiona about that, and she was fabulous the way she came across, because I did speak to Fiona afterwards, and she was so pleased that Fiona had taken the time out to talk to her, signed out her ideas. So I just want to put it on record how delighted I am that Jessica is on board, and that so far she's doing a fabulous job, and I really look forward to working with her more in our area. The second thing is a question that I have. Really, it's in terms of the repairs work. We can see that you're very much behind, and of course we understand why that is the case. But if you could just tell us the different measures that you're putting in place to catch up, in terms of, are you able to take on more staff? Are you able to bring in other contractors? You know, how are you planning to catch up with all these repairs now that we're moving out of the restrictions?
Sure, I can answer that. Thank you very much, members, for inviting to come along. We're endeavouring to clear the backlog. As you're aware, the COVID impacted on our routine repairs and our capital programme dramatically. You know, everything basically stopped, you know, in regards to routine and capital works. We have been given permission in Russia to look at and taking on additional in-house trade staff to try and mitigate that backlog and improve our performance across the board. There is difficulty in that in the current market. We advertised for 2 joiners in Russia last couple of weeks, and we received 0 applicants. So that is now being re-advertised, looking at different social media through Facebook and press and what have you, to widen the net to see if we can attract more tradesters. But it is challenging in the current climate. It's also challenging with our subcontractors, as they have, like most contractors, picked up a lot of work in the private sector where people are doing work for extensions and house repairs and everything like that. So there are challenges there as well. We are looking at developing an in-house furnished homeless unit team, so they will deal solely with that and try and get the furnished units turned around as quickly as possible. So there's a number of different mitigating factors that we're attempting to resolve and get additional resources in to cover all those aspects of it. But there's still a challenge in regards to routine and capital works. There's no doubt about that.
Yes, I can understand there will be. Councillor Loudon.
Thanks, Chair, and it's good to hear that Lorna's had a replacement put in place. I'm not certain I've got contact details for her, or would know how to contact her. So if those could be shared, that would be very welcome. In terms of, I think there's 2 other things I want to talk about. One is when we elect properties, and maybe a sort of somebody who's presented as homeless when they're really young, and we house them. I wondered what support was sort of put in place, you know, so that we keep we make sure that that they sort of act responsibly, and if they are acting irresponsibly, you know, what measures can we take to try and improve things, both for them and for neighbouring residents. So I wondered whether that's something that we had a sort of procedure in place to kind of check up, to see how things were going on bigger schemes when we move new people in, and yeah, I think it's the other issue, the final issue I'll talk about is the housing, the Property and Housing Committee had a report their last meeting, which showed, I think, a 2,000 increase in people looking for houses over quite a short period of time. I think the number that we were using was about 8,000, and that dates from 2018-19. I think the current number is nearer 10,000. I wondered whether officers had any comment to make on that. You know, we're clearly with both the disappearance of furlough and the disappearance of the uplift in universal credit, it's quite possible that we're going to see an increase in people who are struggling to retain their homes in the private sector. And I wondered whether there were any measures in place in terms of how we're going to deal with that if there's a further increase in the number of people looking for social rented housing.
Thank you, Councillor Loudon. Just on the first point, I will share Jessica's contact details with the committee so that you're all aware of how to get in touch with her. In terms of lets to young people and the support that they can access, that support's very much an individual thing, but certainly when you're talking about young people, there are particular vulnerabilities in terms of sometimes their knowledge and maturity on how the world works and what their responsibilities may be in a tenancy. We do have a number of support organisations that we contract for housing support, and we do target those to people who are vulnerable to struggling in their tenancies. Housing support is something that's often term limited, but there are also other interventions that are available. You would have heard of our Housing First program and our rapid rehousing approach. Part of a feature of those approaches is engaging with support agencies around particularly vulnerable clients and ensuring that they can access the support and that support is going to be resilient to and stick around with them.